Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about Marvel comic books, and specifically we're talking about the Avengers again. This time a video game based on those characters that isn't doing too well this year. The Avengers game came out previously just in the last few months, and it seemed to have a little bit of hype behind it. People were obviously wanting it to be cool. We were excited. We liked the characters. We liked the idea of playing as different characters in the Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, all that fun stuff was going to be included. But after the game was announced, there were some bumps in the road. One thing that definitely raised a few eyebrows was the characters they included in the game. They had all the classic Avengers, but they added this other one called Miss Marvel for what appeared to be no reason at first. You're like, why would Miss Marvel be a part of this? No one's even heard of Miss Marvel. And then when you think about it more, though, it obviously kind of happened for woke reasons. This was like a brown-based character that had this minority angle to it. It's also a character that's named Kamala, which is the same name as the VP candidate on the Democratic side for this year's election. So I'm sure that played into it, and a number of other things. And basically it was a woke move that added to the failure of this game. This game came out, and like I said, it's been out for a little while and it had lackluster reviews. It was lacking in content. People weren't super excited about it after playing it. People didn't really like the premise. In addition, another thing worth noting is they couldn't use the real Avengers likenesses. Like, these Avengers don't look like the ones from the movies. These are like different faces and different people playing the same characters in a game that's based on a similar comic book, even though a lot of the story elements reflect the movies. It's kind of a confusing mess, and I think that it's deserving of this kind of loss in money for the company and a loss for Marvel too. Marvel's been really falling off for the last few years, so to see them take a loss here is definitely something that we can be a little happy about. I mean, I'm not wishing for anyone to fail or any company to fail, but when you see something get woke, it is a good sign that it goes broke, and it's good to see some pushback with people's wallets, because hopefully they'll learn better and do better next time. But I'm afraid they won't. I'm afraid they'll get the wrong lessons too and think, hey, this just means people don't want Marvel or Avengers games, but that's not true. We've liked lots of other similar games. For example, the Spider-Man game from 2018 was wildly popular. That's a huge game. There was also a game called Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I think the third one of those came out like last year. There was two other ones that were really popular. So these games can be good. I think they just messed it up on this one. This one didn't have enough content and good content when it was released, and then the online modes were a big mess, and there's a bunch of other reasons. We'll get to details, but first let's check this article, because here they say Square Enix reports $48 million loss following the release of underperforming Marvel's Avengers. Square Enix has declined to report sales numbers. So all we know is that this company lost $48 million. That's a lot. And they're the ones in charge of making this game. They're also the same company, I believe, who made some of the Tomb Raider games. Like, they're a good company who can make great games. This one just fell short. I think another part of it was like microtransactions and too many extra costs. And there was this exclusive feature where Spider-Man was like only available on PlayStation versions of the game, I believe. I don't know if that was a timed exclusive or something, but that probably turned people off. People don't like that kind of fiddling with things and giving this to one gamer and then another gamer doesn't get it, and you wish you had Spider-Man. That's a lot of people's favorite character too. Spider-Man's not just some side character you should be putting on one console. That's like, should be a main character in the whole game. And on top of that, like I said, we'll get to more of the woke minority character they added, but the fact that they didn't have Spider-Man and then they had this woke Miss Marvel for no reason, it was a character no one cared about, that all added to this game's demise. With that said, let's read on into the article and see if we got more details. Driven by weak sales of Marvel's Avengers, Square Enix has posted an operating loss in its HD games segment of more than 5 billion yen, or $48 million, for the second quarter of the current financial year. This information comes from the latest release of financial results for the 6-month period of April through the end of September 2020. Marvel's Avengers, a live service game developed by Crystal Dynamics, was heavily advertised and expensively produced, but was panned by both critics and broader gaming audiences. It's the second high-profile failure of a live service game in as many years, following BioWare's Anthem of 2019. Square Enix HD Games division is responsible for its big game releases, but not its MMOs or mobile games. Despite the losses, the HD Games division did do more business in both quarters of 2020 than in comparable periods of 2019. The MMO division, responsible for games like Final Fantasy XIV, posted profits profits in both quarters this year. So a little more details there. This is one division of a larger company. Square Enix owns Crystal Dynamics. Crystal, I believe, is the one that did make the previous Tomb Raider reboot series that did really well. So it's not that the company is bad. It's not that they can't make something in this Marvel Cinematic Universe that people want to play. Those games can do well, like with Spider-Man and other Avengers games we mentioned. The main point is, I think, was the wokeness. I think that the game didn't have enough content, and the game as a service thing is a big thing. This game as a service, this service game is a big kind of question these days. They can be good games. Like, it can be something really great too when you have this game that you love and it has an online component that you could play and get something new out of it every day. But a lot of people also appreciate just a game that's contained within itself, and a game that you can finish all on your own without the internet, without having to get online, have a good connection, download new updates all the time. Like, some people are over that kind of thing, and that's what comes with also transactions. Like, microtransactions are getting a little upsetting to people. It's getting a little old. They can be good. Like, again, I said, there's some hardcore gamers out there that will throw money into a lot of things, but I think there's too many. The market is saturated with these service games, and if they're not done well, they're just going to fail and lose a lot of money, because it takes a lot of investment too. To do a good one, you got to have a good base game. You got to have a good model for online factors. You got to have servers and all this other stuff to keep up with it. So that's why games like Anthem failed, and now Marvel's Avengers. Square Enix hasn't reported sales numbers, though Tokyo-based games industry analyst David Gibson said in a tweet that the sales volumes were lower than Square Enix had planned, something like 60% of the expected total. Gibson further noted that based on Square Enix's reported numbers, the game likely cost upwards of $170 million to make. This is a report from David Gibson. Avengers, it looks like it cost $170 to $190 million, given they only expensed 70% of the cost in the quarter. Why some didn't say stop post the multiplayer beta will remain a mystery. Square are adamant they can make a recovery. Yeah, the company can still survive. This isn't going to be the end of the world, but it is a sign, I think, in the right direction, because it's showing that this sort of problem is systemic, really. It's a systemic issue, actually, not like systemic racism, which is fake. This is like a systemic problem with not only gaming, the gaming issues we talked about, but also the woke leftist that's invading stuff like Marvel's Avengers, all Marvel stuff, comic books, video games. That stuff invading it is making things even worse. The sales performance of Marvel's Avengers looks even weaker when compared to the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake in April. The delay of the PS4 exclusive game and the boost in game sales due to the virus bolstered the quarter's numbers. Marvel's Avengers, available on all platforms, did not nearly replicate its success. Much like the gaming public, PC Gamer's review was less than enthused about the Avengers at launch. Reviewer Robert Zack called it a well-told campaign and story, but noted that they were a thin veneer over a rather scrawny service game beneath. So it did have a story. That's something I thought about playing through. Like, I would like to check this out one day. I don't know about it at this point. I definitely don't want to give my money, and it's not a good sign with the way it's going, but it is Avengers. It is something like I would play in a perfect world if it was done right. I try the story mode, but as far as moving to the service mode, that's just the thing. That's the problem with these games. This reminds me a lot of the previous Star Wars Battlefront games. The latest reboot came out in about 2015, around the time of the new Star Wars reboot movie, Star Wars The Force Awakens. They did a Star Wars Battlefront, and the problem was they didn't even try to make a story campaign. They just went all full-fledged online mode, and that upset a lot of people. So then the second one, they had a small campaign, but it just seemed like it was tagged on just so they could say they had it. And that's what a lot of these games do. Like, and previously, what games used to be about, like back in the original online days and like the Halo days or BioShock or BioWare games like Mass Effect, what they would do is they would start with the campaign. It's all about the campaign and having a great game that you play on your own. And then if it happens to do well and fit well for an online mode, that's something you do secondarily. You do online mode, and you could do online matches or something like that. Like Halo was really big with that, but it wasn't all about that on Halo. Halo's online became even bigger than the game modes, but they started with great stories and great games and great epic narratives that they had plots and levels and things you had to get through in the story mode. But nowadays they just have people just going for the service mode. It's like skipping over the work. It's like missing the point of these games, and it's not going well. That's what I think is happening with Avengers. It reminds me of something like Battlefront 2, where they slap a story mode on there. It gives you maybe like 5 or 10 hours hours of play, but it's like the shortest, most untuned and not polished part. And really they're just trying to skip that and get through that so they could get to the online mode. And that's mostly a money grubbing move. That's about making more money. That's about them pushing towards the more profitable part of the game, putting more time into story modes, into the premise and the levels in the one player campaign. It's not going to make them as much money. They get way more profits if they get more on online. So with that said, let's finally turn to the character that might have ruined this game. This is an article about Miss Marvel. It says Marvel's Avengers should have just been a Miss Marvel game. Crystal Dynamics pedigree perfectly equipped the team to make an excellent Miss Marvel solo game rather than Marvel's Avengers. So they're kind of suggesting a double down here. This is from CBR, so it shouldn't be a surprise since they're a pretty woke outlet. And essentially they're saying putting Kamala in there wasn't enough. Putting this random girl character no one's heard of in a major Marvel Avengers game, that wasn't enough. They wanted it to be all about her. And that's probably going back to, like I said, Crystal Dynamics had worked with girl heroes before with the Tomb Raider series, which is a great game. But this one, they missed the mark and they tried to put this woke kind of minority girl character into it. Admittedly, I mean, she's not like the worst hero. She stretches around. She makes things out of her fists. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it's a hero. She's got the power. But the fact that they squeeze her in there and put her on the cover, that was really cringe to me because I was like, who is this? Why are we hyping up this hero no one's ever heard of? But it's obviously because of Captain Marvel. This is like a spin-off. Miss Marvel is Captain Marvel and part of the same franchise and the same series. And they're trying to make Kamala Khan is the name of this character, which also, again, relates to Kamala Harris, the VP nominee for the Democrats. So you could see all those connections. You could see this is a get woke, go broke situation that's playing out just how many people expected. So with that said, that about wraps things up. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell for notifications too. And until next time, have a great day.